I'm afraid that if we don't bring back our factories, we won't be able to honor our treaty commitments.
Meet Ken Darga, an economist who recently retired as Michigan's state demographer to run for Congress.
I began my career with the Michigan Department of Management and Budget as a health system economist. I have 2 master's degrees. First is in policy and administration. The second is in economics.
Darga lives in Lansing with his wife and says his financial and public policy background gives him the edge on the competition.
My main advantage over the other candidates is that I am an economist. I can understand aspects of America's problems that are often overlooked, and I have some good solutions.
Like restoring manufacturing in Michigan and America, his top campaign objective.
The most serious part of our debt is the money that we owe to foreign countries, and that's driven by the trade deficit, not by the budget deficit. So the only way to reduce our foreign debt is to make more and import less.
Darga says you can count on him to do that and more, thanks to his moderate stance and willingness to work with all parties.
Bipartisanship is what I'm all about. I think that it's important for the 2 parties to listen to one another's concerns.
When he's not working to help fix those concerns, you can find him working on his garden.
I enjoy good food, good vegetables, and I like growing my own.
And he hopes his candidacy will grow on voters in the August primary. Ken Darga, Democratic candidate for Michigan's 8th congressional seat.
I was on the council for 11 years. I was a mayor for 2 years.
And currently serves as Rochester's state rep, chairing the House Oversight Committee. But now Republican Tom McMillan wants to be your 8th District congressman.
My leadership abilities and issues that people care about, I go and do my homework and make sure that I understand when I'm going up and trying to expose a lot of the misuse of taxpayer dollars.
McMillan says his background in accounting will help solve economic challenges in Michigan, more so than any candidate.
I think it's important for legislators to make sure that they can understand the numbers. As a CPA, I enjoy curling up with a cup of coffee and a big thick budget and going through looking for expenditures that shouldn't be there.
McMillan says he's a leader in fighting corporate welfare and education reform, with healthcare and big government being his biggest targets.
Businesses are really under a lot of burdens with Obamacare. I just don't think government does centralized planning very well, and we certainly shouldn't do it from Washington.
If he goes to Washington, he says he'll actively work with the Tea Party, his own party, and Democrats, but not at the expense of his principles.
These are people that are just constitutional conservatives that love their country. I embrace them and work with them. I work with Democrats regularly on privacy issues, the MEA on issues like local control. If it doesn't violate my principles, I'm more than glad and work very openly.
But before any work starts, he starts each day with a special greeting from his young daughters.
If they're not waking me up too early, I get concerned. So it's something that I just love and look forward to every morning.
Something else he's looking forward to? Plenty of support this August at the polls. Tom McMillan, Republican candidate for Michigan's 8th congressional seat.
Experience and a history of getting the job done.
From campus to Ingham County, Eric Schertzing is a familiar mid-Michigan face.
Was born in Ingham County on the family farm, graduated from Michigan State University. Well, there I started working for Congressman Carr, and then for the last 14 years I've been Ingham County Treasurer and also Land Bank Chair since 2005.
But he plans his next chair to be the open 8th seat, running as one of the 4 Democratic candidates for Congress.
I learned early on, you roll up your sleeves, you get yourself right into things, and you make them work. And I think that's what folks want to have happen in Washington.
His goal for Washington? Leadership through bipartisanship.
Work to get to know Democratic and Republican colleagues better and make sure they get to know me so that we're having a conversation as human beings, not political adversaries that are constantly knocking horns.
Schertzing says his campaign has 2 strong principles that connect with Michiganders: fixing our roads and improving our schools.
Infrastructure and education lead to higher paying, better jobs. We need to rebuild that middle class.
He's built a strong relationship with this community, and the relationship that means the most to him also has local roots.
My wife, Nancy, and I met at Case Hall at Michigan State University on a blind date. Best answer I ever got in my life is when I asked Nancy to marry me and she said yes.
And he hopes voters will say yes to the Schertzing campaign in the ballot box. Eric Schertzing, Democratic candidate for Michigan's 8th congressional seat.
As a social worker, as an educator, I just see people really hurting.
And Susan Grettenberger wants to help. That's why the Central Michigan University professor and member of the MEA is running for Congress.
It's really important for us to recognize the role of unions in protecting people's work situations. Government does have a role to play, and many of the things government's been doing is actually making people's lives worse. So we need to have somebody who's going to work to make those lives better.
She says her plan to do that is based around what she calls the 4 E's.
Education, the economy, the environment, and equality.
With the first 2 being her top priorities, especially because she works with and for students year-round.
To borrow at the same rates that banks are borrowing at, why not let them get the benefits that the banks are getting instead of allowing the corporations to get those big profits? And also expand some on the Pell Grants. We'd be able to really help students out a lot and help them get through college so they have opportunities.
Grettenberger says she's made the most of all her opportunities to talk with potential voters leading up to the primary.
When I'm out knocking on doors and at events, just talking to everybody, including Republicans. And I think if we are willing to listen to each other, that's going to make it more possible to do the kind of compromising that is going to get things done.
And after the campaign season's done, you may just see Grettenberger and her family enjoying summer's other popular season.
If you look at my logo, it's the Tigers colors. I've been a fan of the Tigers since I was really young. We're going to get down there for a game.
Until then, it's get down to the polls, where she hopes voters hit a home run for Team Grettenberger. Susan Grettenberger, Democratic candidate for Michigan's 8th congressional seat.
I don't really feel that my interests are being adequately represented, and I think a lot of people feel the same way.
That was motivation enough for East Lansing lawyer Jeff Hank to run for Congress. The 32-year-old says he's not your average Democrat and is proud to be the reform candidate on the ballot.
Even though I'm running as a Democrat, I'm very independent-minded, and I don't want to segment people in the population. I'm here to work for everybody, and not to. I'll take any good idea from any source and run with it if it's going to improve, policies.
Hank says his plan to improve policies in Michigan: change the way voters view politics as a whole.
The main theme of my campaign is that we need an American Renaissance. It's the way we talk about politics. It's the way we do health care. It's the way we try to protect the environment. It's the way we do education.
And as an MSU College of Law graduate still paying off his loans, he says education reform is a must, and he's taken action even before the election.
And that's supporting education at the lower levels, and that's eliminating the student debt issue. I'm the only candidate in the race, including the Republicans, who has actually done something to help student loan borrowers. We led a class action lawsuit against the Michigan Finance Authority. We're actually putting millions of dollars back into the hands of Michigan student loan borrowers.
Hank also wants to put money into infrastructure projects that bring renewable and sustainable energy options to Michigan.
We solve an environmental issue by not having to rely on fossil fuels as much. We solve the manufacturing issue. We get people back to work. They're getting better paid jobs. It all ties in together.
Just like the plot of a good book, something Hank enjoys reading daily.
Get educated, and that's why I love books, because you take something from all of them.
And he hopes voters take something away from his campaign and show their support at the polls. Jeff Hank, Democratic candidate for Michigan's 8th congressional seat.
Begin by thanking the members that are here.
When I served in the Senate, we only controlled one chamber. We had to work with the other side, both the House and the executive branch.
Former Senate Majority Leader Mike Bishop says he's ready to be your next U.S. Congressman from Michigan's 8th District.
I have a vested interest, just like the people I represent, in the future of this state. You have to know when to stand on principle. I have always believed that government has gotten completely out of control in terms of its overall size and scope.
His plan to get it under control? A strong conservative agenda with a focus on jobs and the economy.
To do whatever I can to ensure the government gets out of the way of the private sector so that it can grow and prosper. I currently hold a position in the private sector. I've seen firsthand how government intrusion and regulation has really thwarted the growth of this economy.
Bishop, who was endorsed by outgoing Congressman Mike Rogers, says it's vital for the Republican Party as a whole to work together to fix Michigan's problems.
We not chase extremes around. It's important that we not get caught up in a discussion about how we break up as a party. In the legislature, the Tea Party came to my aid and really helped me get budgets passed without tax increases. I appreciate that.
What he appreciates even more? Quality time with his wife and 3 children.
Just to have all 3 of them together and my wife and I out and about doing whatever we do to enjoy it is fun. We like to travel and spend time together.
And he hopes voters will spend time at the polls supporting Team Bishop for the primary. Mike Bishop, Republican candidate for Michigan's 8th congressional seat.